We had Longlegs, we had the monkey, and now we have this. You know what I think the real question is here? Is Oz good or is Oz bad? Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, of course, I'm coming to you all with my out of the theater, again, actually out of theater thoughts, this time on Keeper, directed by Osgood Perkins and starring Tatiana Maslany. Story-wise, all I can say is that this is centered around a couple that takes a trip into the country, in a cabin, to spend some alone time, some intimate time, and while they're there, things start to get extremely bizarre, weird, off-putting, strange, all the things, right? So I'm going to start with the pros, and let me just say that Osgood Perkins, like it or not, whether you're a fan or not, he has definitely had his own foray into the world of horror. And with Longlegs, the monkey, and now this, I think he is definitely solidifying himself as someone who has some very distinctive ideas when it comes to the genre, when it comes to the storytelling, and definitely when it comes to the visual aesthetic. And speaking of visual aesthetic, 100%, this film gave everything I needed visually. The angles, the cabin, the trees, the surroundings, the water. There were also these really interesting uses of, I'm guessing this was a cross dissolve, just kind of overlapping certain scenes with the following scene, and then, another scene. You just see all these overlapping images. And I think the first image that really pulled me in was a shot where the main character is relaxing in a tub. You suddenly see the water that's flowing in the river flowing past her. And it was such a calming, relaxing, soothing image. And it almost didn't fit because I was like, oh, we know something's about to go wrong. But it also leaned into that peaceful, tranquil vibe that you get when you're out in a cabin, when you're out in nature, and hopefully nothing sinister is afoot, right? But I really enjoyed that. I thought that was beautiful. I thought there were so many other angles and shots that had an aesthetic like that. It just was soothing. It really added to the atmosphere. I appreciate atmosphere in a lot of films, and I think that the visuals here and the cinematography especially, it absolutely added to the environment, it added to the atmosphere, and the atmospheric storytelling that also encompassed this film. As far as performances, this is almost a one-woman show by Tatiana Maslany. I know she is really well known because of her starring role in Orphan Black. I have not had the chance to see that, but just going off of the premise, I know it's a show I would enjoy. It seems so interesting, and I heard nothing but raves about her performance in that film. And I can say, considering that this is her second time starring in an Osgood Perkins directed film, the other being The Monkey earlier this year, I think she was easily the best part of both films. Of course, she's the lead here and she was a supporting in that, but I enjoyed her immensely in both, and I think her performance absolutely kept me invested, especially as things started getting way more kooky, creepy, and completely wacky and over the top. I will also say that when it comes to the sinister force present in this film, I have to say the design for that, obviously I'm not spoiling anything, but the design for that was very disturbing but also very impressive. I just was kind of like, I was looking at the screen like, I am so creeped out by this, but I am so like mesmerized by it at the same time, and maybe that was the intention. I have to say, I don't think I've seen anything like this before, which of course when it comes to horror, as with a lot of genres, you want to at least feel like you're seeing something you haven't seen before, because it's hard to continually remix and refresh this genre. There are so many different ways. There are only but so many different ways to tell a story, and I do think that, at least from that perspective, I can say this film absolutely has some elements I had not seen before, especially visually. All right, now I'm going to jump over to the cons. I am still trying to wrap my head around what I just saw, and I'm trying to figure out what went wrong, because I feel that much like the film Him, much like Longlegs, and much like The Monkey, the concept we have here is, you might almost say brilliant, if not unique. At the very least, I can appreciate that aspect. I love the fact that it's something original. It is something fresh and new. I think the ideas here are impressive. They really are. But I think the execution, again, takes it somewhere else. And I think the effectiveness that it could have had, it just loses it. Like, it loses something in translation, and it's just something about it that just does not come together. I thought that so much of this, like the film Him, I would even say Longlegs if I think about it, but so much of some of these horror films are just vibes. And when I say vibes, I just mean like it's just aesthetic, it's just visuals, it's, you know, music and sound design. I love all those things, right? I can appreciate that. But I need something to pull me along with the story a little bit more than that. You have to have more to chew on. And I felt that easily the first half, I mean the majority, honestly. I felt like so much of this film, except for maybe the last and final act, was just kind of like, oh, you know, okay, and we're just kind of, you know, like if you've ever been to a water park and you've been on a lazy river, that's what this gave. Minus maybe some really creepy moments, but even that to me was dialed down, and I just don't think this film did enough to emphasize the intensity, the tension, you know. I didn't feel that, and I wanted to, because I was like, there's something mysterious happening here. And if you know anything about me, then you know that the mystery behind the horror is what I'm here for, and I am. But I think it took way too long to at least raise the stakes to a point where we felt like, okay, something's really wrong here. Something's going awry. Our main character is very much in danger. And I think that was evident because pretty much everybody except the person next to me walked out of the theater. I have to say, it's been a minute since I've seen people do that, especially this many people. They're like, okay, next, good night. No, thank you. They were not happy. So I can kind of relate, because then I was like, oh Lord, do I need to leave? I'm not really one to up and leave a theater. There have been a couple of times I wish I did. I do feel like the film was trying to take us along for a ride to a conclusion that comes in an exposition dump. They do say show and not tell. I love a good bit of tell because I love to talk and I love to hear other people talk sometimes. So when it comes to this medium, you need to show a little bit more. And I felt like it was trying to do so much showing for the majority of this. Then all of a sudden, like, let's tell. Okay, cool. There we are. Done. And I was just like, no. That doesn't really work for me. I'm sorry. It's just, after all of this is the conclusion. Absolutely not. Coming down to the substance, I think something was missing. I felt like somebody tossed a few pages of the script away, and they were like, okay, well, you know what? We can just end it here. Let's call it a day. That's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, so much. Let's take this to the studio and let's get this done. So when it comes down to it, I appreciated Keeper for its ideas, but I also was not a fan of Keeper for the execution of those ideas. I would probably give this, I'll put it at a C. I appreciate Osgood Perkins' ideas. You know, he gets it honest considering who he's related to. He is the son of the Anthony Perkins, so I can appreciate that. But I think that his execution, as far as his foray into the horror genre, is promising, but it also needs some work. And if nothing else, I know that given that my friends and I will be having a Friendsgiving in a cabin in the mountains, let's just say I will be keeping my eyes open. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off. and I'll see you at the movies.